The glass hit the patio stone before anyone screamed. String lights trembled above the pool. My sister Claire stood beside the outdoor bar, smiling like she had just crowned herself. In her manicured hand was a pink party drink, bright as candy. "Drink up, sweetheart," she told my 7-year-old daughter. "We made this especially for you." Ava reached for it. I saw the pale grit clinging to the rim. I bent down like I was fixing Ava's sandal. My fingers closed around the cup. I replaced it with a safe glass from the table and sent her inside. Minutes later, Grant grabbed the pink cup. Then came the crack of glass, and my mother ran to Claire first. At the hospital, the waiting room lights made everyone look guilty. Grant Whitmore, Claire's husband, sat behind a set of swinging doors with monitors taped to his chest. Grant was a financial executive, polished in the way expensive men are polished, all dark suits, clipped sentences, and hands that never stayed still unless someone important was watching. Claire sat with my mother's arms around her. Ava was not there. My friend Sarah, a nurse I had known since college, had taken her back to my house and put her upstairs with cartoons, pajamas, and the hallway light on. No one asked about Ava, not my mother, not my father, not Claire. They asked about Grant's breathing, Grant's bills, Grant's reputation, Grant's lawsuit risk. Before there was even a lawsuit, a doctor came out and said Grant was stable. He mentioned a reaction, more testing, and a report that would take time. Claire nodded like a widow at a funeral, though her husband was still alive. Then Evelyn turned to me. Her lipstick had bled slightly into the fine lines around her mouth. She looked tired, but not from fear, from inconvenience. "This never would have happened if you knew how to control your own home," she said. Richard stood behind her with both hands in his coat pockets. I looked at him, waiting. He looked at the floor. Claire lifted her face from my mother's shoulder. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was clean. "Ava shouldn't go back there tonight," she said. "Not until someone figures out what kind of environment Mia is running." The spoon in a nurse's coffee cup stopped tapping. I felt my fingers close around my car keys. Evelyn did not hesitate. "She's right," my mother said. "Ava needs stability. A 2-parent home. People who can protect her from chaos." There it was. Not concern. Not shock. A prepared door opening. My daughter had almost taken a drink she should never have been handed, and somehow I was the danger. My sister had smiled with that pink cup in her hand, and somehow she was the safer mother. I did not shout. I did not point. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket and texted David, my attorney, a calm man who made his living turning panic into paperwork. Then I looked at my mother and smiled. A small, quiet smile, the kind Claire used to wear. "I understand," I said, for the first time, completely. Claire had been smiling like that since we were children. Claire Whitmore, my older sister by 3 years, was the kind of girl adults trusted before she finished a sentence. She had soft blonde curls, clean white shoes, and a way of tilting her head that made every mistake look accidental. I was the other daughter, Mia Bennett, the quiet one, the useful one, the one who knew where the extra batteries were kept, which bills sat unpaid on the kitchen counter, and how to make a box of pasta feed 4 people when my parents forgot to grocery shop before Claire's weekend pageant. My mother, Evelyn Bennett, was a polished woman who wore perfume even to fold laundry. She called Claire delicate and called me capable, at 8 years old. I thought capable was a compliment. Then I learned it meant no one was coming. My father, Richard Bennett, worked in finance and carried his car keys like a badge of authority. He rarely yelled. He did not need to. One look over the top of his newspaper could make a room rearrange itself. When Claire cried, the house stopped. When I cried, someone handed me a dish towel. The first time I remember understanding it. I was 11. Claire had broken my school science trophy while trying on my new sweater. The gold plastic cup snapped clean off the base and rolled under my bed. She stared at it for 1 second, then screamed. By the time my mother reached the room, Claire was holding her wrist and saying I had shoved her. I stood beside the broken trophy with the sweater still stretched on Claire's arms. Evelyn looked at me. Not at the trophy. Not at the sweater. At me. Mia, she said, tired already. Why do you always have to make everything difficult? Claire kept the sweater. The trophy went in the trash. Years later, when Claire got accepted into a private college, my parents opened champagne in the dining room. Richard spread the tuition papers across the table like they were proud family photographs. Evelyn cried into a napkin and said, "Our girl is going places," when my acceptance letter came. It arrived in a thin white envelope while Claire was home for spring break. I found it between grocery coupons and a dental bill. Richard read the first line, nodded once, and said, "Good school. You'll need loans." Evelyn was upstairs helping Claire decide which dress to wear to a charity luncheon. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. At 26. I bought my first small condo with scratched kitchen tile and a bedroom window that faced a brick wall. I invited my parents over for dinner. I bought chicken I could barely afford and set 4 plates on a folding table. Evelyn called 10 minutes before they were supposed to arrive. Claire had a migraine. They could not leave her alone. I ate standing at the counter while the 4th plate cooled under the yellow kitchen light. That was the day I learned my place in this family. I drove home through streets that looked rinsed clean by midnight rain. Sarah Morales, my closest friend since college and an emergency room nurse with a voice that could steady a room, met me at the door. Ava was asleep upstairs. Her little white sandal sat crooked beside the entry rug, one strap still loose. I touched the strap once. Then I locked the door. The deadbolt sounded louder than it should have. Sarah did not ask me what happened at the hospital. She only handed me a mug of coffee and said, "Tell me what needs to be done." "Stay with Ava," I said. She nodded. I went into my home office and closed the door. The room was cold. 3 monitors waited on the desk. My leather tote sat beside the keyboard. I took out my tablet, my phone, and the folded hospital visitor sticker that still clung to my sleeve. First, I downloaded the backyard camera footage. I saved the original file to the cloud. I copied it to an external drive. I marked the timestamp when Claire bent toward Ava, when the pink cup changed hands, when Grant stepped toward the table, when the glass broke. No commentary, no accusation, just time. Then I opened a blank document and built a timeline. 7:38 p.m. Claire approaches Ava near the outdoor bar. 7:39 p.m. Pink drink placed in Ava's hand. 7:40 p.m. Visible residue on rim. 7:41 p.m. Ava escorted inside by Sarah. 7:44 p.m. Grant removes covered cup from patio table. 7:45 p.m. Emergency call placed. The cursor blinked after each line like a small, patient pulse. I emailed David Rosen, my attorney, was not dramatic. He wore gray suits, answered in complete sentences, and never used 3 words when one filed motion would do. I attached the video, the timeline, screenshots of Claire's first social media post, and a short message. Family members are threatening custody action. Possible attempted access to Ava's trust. Please advise before morning. Then I emailed the trustee, Margaret Ellis. The independent trustee assigned to Ava's inheritance had managed the account since my grandfather died. She was precise, older, and impossible to charm. I told her no one except me had authority to request information, care payments, school payments, housing payments, therapy payments, or emergency distributions for Ava. I used plain language. No relatives are to be treated as authorized contacts. Sent. Next, I opened my bank portal. No one had access. No shared cards, no family transfers, no auto payments to my parents. There had been 2 small medical reimbursements the year before, both tied to actual bills, both documented. I downloaded the records anyway. Then I opened a folder and named it Boundary. Inside it, I made subfolders: camera, medical, messages, school, trust, legal. I changed the alarm code. I removed the old family guest pin. I set the driveway camera to flag unfamiliar cars and save every clip. The printer started after 1 in the morning. The sound filled the office in slow, mechanical breaths. Page after page slid into the tray. I did not cry. I did not rehearse speeches. At dawn, I sent Ava's school 1 sentence. Only I am authorized to pick up my daughter. Then I sat back, coffee cold beside my hand. This time, I would not fix what they had broken. The mediation room was on a high floor downtown, all glass, walnut, and recycled air. Grant sat at the table in a navy suit, pressed enough to deny everything. Beside him was Claire, my older sister, wearing cream silk and a cross necklace. My parents sat behind them like witnesses at a ceremony. Their attorney, Martin Vale, was a sharp-faced civil litigator with silver glasses and a voice made for invoices. He slid a folder toward me before anyone offered water. David Rosen, my attorney, rested one hand on my wrist, not to stop me, to remind me we had time. Martin opened the folder. My client is willing to resolve this quietly. Mr. Whitmore will pause the injury claim if your daughter temporarily resides with Mrs. Whitmore during the custody review. Any care expenses would be handled through the child's trust, subject to approval. Claire looked at me with damp eyes. It's not punishment. Mia, she said, it's stability. My mother nodded so hard her earrings moved. I looked at the pen lying on top of the agreement. Heavy, gold, pointed directly at my hand. I did not touch it. David opened his briefcase instead. The first thing he placed on the table was a photograph from my backyard camera. Claire's hand, Ava's yellow dress, the pink cup between them. No one spoke. The next page showed me bending at Ava's feet, my fingers closing around the cup. Sarah waiting by the glass door. David said, "For the record, Ms. Bennett removed the child from possible exposure and preserved the item. She did not administer anything to Mr. Whitmore." Martin's jaw tightened. That is one interpretation. David placed the next sheet down. The emergency call transcript supports it. Then came the insurance claim. Then the medical bills. Then Grant's lost wage statement. David turned each page slowly, like setting stones on a grave. Mr. Whitmore claimed a week of total incapacity, David said. Yet his office calendar, submitted by his employer to the insurer, shows remote meetings the following morning. Grant leaned forward. That was limited work. David did not look at him. He also claimed substantial out-of-pocket medical costs, the actual patient responsibility, after insurance adjustment, was just under $3,000. Claire blinked. Martin cleared his throat. Medical trauma is not measured by arithmetic. No, David said. Fraud sometimes is. The room changed temperature. My father shifted. My mother whispered, "Richard." David placed another stack on the table. Payments, bills, contracts, not secret files, not stolen records. Documents Grant's side had attached to demands, plus public filings any courthouse clerk could pull. There are also inconsistencies in the financial hardship narrative, David said. A mortgage delinquency recorded last month. Several large payments to a private apartment in the city, personal luxury bills described as household necessity, and proposed care costs for Ava that appear to mirror Mr. Whitmore's debts. Grant's face lost its color in sections. Claire turned to him. What apartment he did not answer. That silence did more than any confession could have. Martin reached for the papers. David placed his palm over them. Copies have already been delivered to the trustee of Ava Bennett's trust. He said, "No disbursement will be considered without independent review. A motion to restrict third-party contact with the child has also been filed." Claire's mouth opened. For once, no sound came out. Then the conference room door opened. A woman in a dark blazer stepped inside with a leather folder pressed to her ribs. Her name was Laura Kim, a financial investigator retained through the insurer's unit. She was small, neat, and expressionless, like someone who had read too many lies before breakfast. Behind her stood a court officer. Laura looked at Grant. "Mr. Whitmore, this is notice that your claim has been referred for formal review. We are requesting preservation of all related financial records, communications, and invoices." The officer handed Martin the envelope. Martin read the first page. His mouth flattened. Grant stood too fast. His chair scraped the floor so sharply Claire flinched. "This is harassment," he said. "She did this because she's jealous." I looked at him for the first time since I sat down. "No," I said. "I did this because you brought my daughter into it." Claire pushed back from the table. Grant, what is she talking about? He turned on her. You wanted custody. You said your parents would back us. My mother made a choking sound. Claire's face hardened. You told me the trust would cover everything. There it was, small, ugly. Enough. David closed the folder. Martin removed his glasses. My firm is suspending representation pending review. Grant stared at him like the floor had opened. I stood, lifting my leather tote from the chair. The gold pen still lay untouched between us. Claire whispered my name. I did not answer. At the door, I turned back once. My daughter is not an account, I said, and my home is not collateral. Then I walked out while the room stayed silent behind me. The fallout did not arrive like a storm. It came in envelopes, emails, and quiet phone calls that suddenly understood the difference between family and liability. Grant's claim did not survive the review. His insurer froze the file, then forwarded it for fraud investigation. The company where he worked placed him on leave within a week. By the end of the month, his name disappeared from the office website. No announcement. No farewell lunch, just an empty line where his title had been. Claire deleted the video she had posted about surviving a toxic sibling. Too late. Screenshots had already moved through the same circles that once pitied her. The women from her charity board stopped tagging her in photographs. Her calls went unanswered. The cream silk, the cross necklace, the soft voice she used in rooms full of witnesses. None of it worked against paperwork. My parents tried once. Evelyn called from a blocked number. I let it ring until voicemail caught it. Her voice came through thin and shaking. Mia, we need to talk as a family. David sent one response. All contact must go through counsel. After that, there was nothing. No holiday guilt. No long messages from cousins who had suddenly discovered concern. No footsteps on my porch. The protective order sat in a drawer by the front door, under spare batteries and Ava's school forms. I did not frame it. I did not need to look at it every morning. Its power was not in being seen. Its power was in the way no one crossed my driveway anymore. A year passed, the house settled into itself. In November, the air turned clean and sharp. Leaves gathered against the patio stones where the glass had shattered that night. I swept them into a small brown pile and watched the wind pull one back across the yard. Inside, Ava sat at the kitchen table with colored pencils spread around her elbows. She was 8 now, taller, quieter in the mornings, still fond of yellow. A glass of apple juice stood beside her paper. No one reached for it. No one told her to drink. Sunlight moved across the tile, slow and gold. The dishwasher hummed. Somewhere upstairs, laundry turned in a soft circle. I stood at the sink and looked through the glass doors at the patio. For years, silence had meant waiting for someone else to decide what I deserved. Now it meant the locks were changed. It meant my daughter was safe. It meant peace had learned my address. The pink cup was gone. The wet circle it left on the patio had faded long before winter came, but I still remembered the sound it made when it rolled under the table. I used to think silence meant I had lost. Now I know silence can be a locked door, a signed order, a child sleeping safely upstairs. Some people call that cold. I call it clean. If a family ever forced a boundary into existence. Mine sounded like this. Not a scream, not a fight, just a cup set down, and a door that never opened again.